Hi, you're listening to FREJDA Talks, a sporadically published podcast series focusing on current events and job markets in the field of the social sciences. Hope you enjoy today's episode.
Welcome to FREJDA Talks. My name is Rita, and I am here joined today with Daniela, the Labor Market Coordinator at the Social Science Student Union. And we're going to talk a little bit about the labor market for social sciences and a little bit more specifically about the yearly job fair SAMarbete. So, hi Daniela.
Hi Rita.
Would you like to tell us a little bit about yourself? What do you do here at the Student Union? What do you study or did you study?
Yeah. Yes. First and foremost, thank you very much for letting me be on this podcast. I'm very interesting, and also I'm very... So as Rita mentioned, my name is Daniela, and I am originally from Sweden, from Malmö, so not so far away from Lund, where I was born and raised and actually still live there. I've never moved from Malmö. I like it very much. My family is originally from Croatia, so Southern Europe. So I also grew up with that culture. What I studied before I became a full-timer, I have 2 degrees. So I studied a bachelor degree in behavioral science at Lund University, and I graduated from that in, June 2019. That's a program taught in Swedish at our faculty, the Faculty of Social Sciences. After I finished my degree in behavioral science, I thought to myself, what do I want to do next? I did not feel ready to enter the labor market just yet, and I wanted to study a master's. So I applied to different master's programs, and I ended up studying a master's in strategic communication, and that master is taught in English. And so I was in a class with a bunch of lovely international students and a few Swedes like myself, also lovely. And it was very fun and enriching, I would say. And then I graduated from that program in June 2021. And I should also mention, throughout my studies, I've been very active in the student life in Lund in different ways. I've been trying to juggle both part-time work and extra engagement. And while doing this, I've also been active in the student union, and I've been doing everything you can possibly do in the labor market area. So I've been here now for a little less than a year. I'm finishing my mandate. My mandate period ends on June 30th. And now I'm rounding up my year as the labor market coordinator here at the Social Sciences Student Union.
So the SAMarbete is the biggest, as far as I can see, the biggest event that you have for the labor market, right?
Yes.
Do you want to talk a little bit about what it is and how it was this last edition?
Yeah. So SAMarbete is a career fair. Is arranged every year by the Social Sciences Student Union. As a project, it's owned by the Student Union Board, but the project leader is the labor market coordinator or a student who wants to be the project leader. But most often it will be the labor market coordinator. And as you said, it is the biggest project that we have in the labor market area, and it's been growing with every year. But the past year has been mostly the way it's been the few years, so we'll have around 30 organizations or exhibitors. It will usually, when there's no pandemic, take place over one day, usually the first Wednesday in March. That has just become a tradition, and it will be held in Eden. So during the day there will be around 30 exhibitors, how much the space allows. And you invite them, they're there, and they maybe give something to the students and then just are there to be able to speak and network with the students. Additionally, there are usually also lectures during the day, which will be then often held in the auditorium in Eden. and they can be on any theme that is related to labor market and social science, and that's very broad. And then you'll have some goodie bag releases, and also some CV checking and CV photography, usually. But this year, what I did then, or what we did together, is that we booked different rooms at the faculty, mainly the auditorium, but also smaller rooms. So students could tune in with us, be there with us in the room, but they could also tune in digitally, and the lecturers and the exhibitors were all present digitally. So we had a digital platform, the same platform we used last year, and they're called Student Node. And there was great collaboration with them. I had a lot of many conversations about the platform, but it worked out great. So thank you to Student Node for
shout out
for taking the time, and I took a lot of time from them, but it was worth it in the end. And what we decided, also a little bit from last year, how I'd seen it been. I was in the project group last year, so I saw the digital fair, and I've also been in the project group before that, the year before that, so I've also seen the physical one, and I've also attended the fair, and I've also been helping out as the event host and as student volunteer. So I've been doing the fair from different angles, you could say. And last year we decided to make the fair longer, to have it over 1 week instead, because to have lectures and CV checking and all these aspects on one day might work when you have it physically, because you can choose where to go, but digitally we thought it would be difficult. And we thought the same thing this year. So we had lectures spread out over the entire week. It was week 9. In Sweden we like the week numbers. So I remember week 9, and it was the first week in March. And then of course we had the actual exhibitors there as well to speak to the students. And how we worked with that was that you book times with them. They could also, and then there was also the opportunity for the exhibitors to present themselves in a presentation. So myself, I was administering all the presentations. So I was in that room the entire day. So I unfortunately did not get to speak with the exhibitors one-on-one, but I had a dialogue with them as well. So I would say all in all, it was a very nice fair, very good. We organized it to the best of our abilities. It was unfortunate that we were right in between. The restrictions were uplifted, and it was not time to make it entirely physical, because we had some exhibitors that were in Stockholm or other places, and it didn't feel right for me when we had decided it was digital to change very last minute. And maybe we would have some dropouts then as well. So and then regarding students turnout, that can always be better, I think. I think sometimes students don't see the value of the labor market while in their studies, and then they think of them maybe at the end of their studies, but it should be something they should think about continually throughout their studies. So that's something to work with, I would say, but that's not all in our hands.
Yeah, that's good, and you did a very good job regarding the conditions that we had and still have. Of the pandemic and stuff. So.
Thank you. Yeah, it wasn't easy.
It must be nerve-wracking to try to schedule something as big as this when stuff is changing every day.
Yeah. It was not easy.
And maybe that's one of the answers for the next question. What do you think is the most challenging thing as your role as a labor market coordinator?
That's a very good question. Maybe I've thought this through a little bit. But spontaneously, what comes to my mind is what do the students want? So when I try to plan, what kind of lectures should we have, or what kind of exhibitors should we invite or ask to come, I find it I can have my idea, but I don't know if the students are also interested in that. So to measure the interest of the students and to see what kind of interest they have is, I would say, the most difficult. That kind of ties into this other thing which I find difficult, is that social science it's such a broad area.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And that's maybe the most obvious answer, that it's a very broad area and there are continuously new programs being added. It's hard to keep track sometimes. I mean, I know the programs I studied and I know some other, within quotation marks, generic programs maybe. But I mean, from last year I know they've added a few new programs. Just one was like social scientific data analysis, and I'm like, oh, what does this, what do those students do, and what do they later become, and to try to take in everyone's needs is a very difficult aspect. So when you want to invite exhibitors, it's sometimes hard to find something for everyone. And you try your best, and I also sometimes find the labor market in itself to be a little rigid. I don't know, that's a long-term thing, but I would like the labor market or the organizations to try to be more open-minded. So yeah, those are some challenging aspects, like the breadth of our studies and trying to find something for everyone, and trying to see the interest of the students and what do they want, and then the labor market in itself sometimes being a little bit tricky to navigate, I would say.
And I don't know if you agree, but from my experience, I'm also a social science student, and from my experience, I feel like sometimes the university itself doesn't concern itself with the labor market, especially when making the programs. Like my program, for example, is so academic oriented that it's, even for me, it's hard to understand what I can do in a labor market that is not university. So I can only imagine how hard it must be for somebody that is not from the same program. So yeah, I think maybe there is a need for the university to have more awareness and to, I don't know how in practical terms, but to communicate better with the labor market, especially when formulating when making the new programs.
I fully agree. I think I cannot speak for other universities, or maybe some in Sweden, because I think there might be similar tendencies, but at least Lund University, in my experience of it, having studied here for 5 years and now working at the student union here, is that our university is very decentralized, which makes, what that means in practice is that the faculties have a lot of ownership of what they do at their faculty. And if you look at this is what I learned. I had an internship at the university a few years ago now, and I was at the career and alumni office. It was a very enriching internship, and there I got to see how it looks like at the different faculties. And I was so shocked when I saw that the School of Economics and Management, or LUSEM, so the students who studied economics and management and similar fields, they have a career office dedicated to students who have questions about CV and such, and they do workshops of different kinds, mainly only for their students, because those are the resources they have. And I thought to myself, well, here I am, I'm a future social scientist. I don't know who to turn to in any such case. Well, I can turn to my study counselor, but it's not really the same, because they also have a study counselor if you look at their faculty. So I remember being a little angry as well, and I think this anger also led me in the direction of engaging myself more in the student union and in labor market matters. And I think overall, our university, I believe it's still a top 100 university. Could be, yeah. So
top one in Sweden.
Top one in Sweden. Nice. A good Lund University. I didn't know that. I think with that reputation, you have to focus a lot on the academic part, and the PhD, and keeping this high prestige university or the ranking as well. I do think the university should think more about the labor market and incorporate it more, but I also think it's in their nature, in a sense, to kind of focus more on the academic part.
Yeah.
And I don't know, I'm thinking the faculties should, because the university is a very broad entity as well, if the faculties who know their own faculty and their students and their programs better, if they do different specific niche targets towards the incorporating the labor market aspect, I think that would be very good. Something that student union strives to, at least in our opinion program. We want all the programs at our faculty to have a semester where you can choose to do an internship, and also if the student themselves cannot find it, we also want the faculty or the program to help the students find an internship, because those things are often very valuable when you enter the labor market. So to summarize, yes, I also agree that the university is very academic and research based. I don't know how to work, I don't know how it would change, because I think they have this interest of course, academic and research. That's part of what makes a university a university.
Exactly.
But it's also important for the university staff and for all of us to remember that at the end of the day, maybe 10% of us go into the academia, and the remaining 90, I'm trying to give some estimates, enter the real, within quotation marks, the real world or the labor market. And we should be equipped for that too.
Yeah. Well, I feel like you already talked a little bit about this, but I can ask anyway in case there's something missing. What do you think, as a social science student wanting to go to the real, quotation marks, the real labor market, what do you think are the most challenging things?
Oh, like when you're a student?
Yeah, when you're, or a freshly graduated student.
What I've noticed is that, so I'm applying for jobs that are mainly in Swedish. So I'm, competing against other Swedish speakers. And I think getting that first job is very tricky, because often when you have the first job, even if you're not satisfied with it, if you don't like your salary, or I don't know, the organization, or hope that doesn't happen, but if there's anything you don't like, you have had this experience and it's easier to move forward and to go into another field or advance in the organization or something. But getting this first job is, from at least what I experience, and what I think many students will experience too, tricky. Today, I love, getting a job is about networking. So, getting that first job, it's not easy. I think many companies and organizations, depending on how big they are as such, I think they do internal recruitment. And that means that, yes, I can have all the qualifications, but I have not been there before. Well, Anna here has been there before, to take an example, and she wants to switch jobs. Well, go for her. So we don't often have the experience, maybe, because we haven't been in the labor market for very long. And when I've looked at job ads, I don't find so many junior positions. I find many positions that are looking for 2 to 3 years of working experience, and you cannot demand that of someone who's just entered the labor market. So getting that first job I find tricky. And that's where I think internship and student work really plays a big part, because if you've had an internship and you're satisfied and they're satisfied, it can lead to potentially something in the future. Also with student work, so that's I'm trying to pull in my context as well for myself. But I think finding that first job, and then maybe thinking about your own network. And I have a feeling sometimes that people outside of social sciences and also outside of humanities and theology, because they're a little bit more closer to us,
Mm-hmm.
they think of our studies as like, you know, kind of like a waste of time. Do you really need to study this? Is that really important? And so for us to actually have courage and to put ourselves out there and say, this is what I know, this is what I take with me, and that's something the faculty should also help out with more, to make it clear. What knowledge do you have? What should you push on, or what is important? That's maybe more from a nervous student in me speaking, that I don't really know what knowledge I have, what I can contribute with.
And I feel that that's a very common feeling among social science students. Not knowing, feeling lost. And that's usually why we don't know what we can do, because we don't know what we know.
Yes. Yeah.
So you ended up actually answering my next question. So it was about the top tips to give a student. So summing up would be networking, understanding clearly what is and reflecting on what is your knowledge and how you can utilize it.
Yeah.
And that the first job is always more difficult, so trying to get involved in student work and internships from the beginning of the studies.
Yes. I would also say, if I can add, like,
of course,
any type of engagement you do will be valuable. There's so, like, that's the perk, but also the risk when you're studying at Lund University, because there are so many things you can do at our university. So I would say choose 1, 2, tops 3, depending on who you are and how you get your energy, of course. But I would never do more than 3, I think. And then something else I can think of, like when it comes to student engagement. Of course, again, this depends on who you are as a person. But let's say if you decide to get active in a nation and you want to do something, so you start being a worker, great. But I think, I'm trying to think as a recruiter, and I think while that is looking great on your CV or on your resume, if it does say that you are a foreman, or if it does say that you are the curator of Lund's nation or whichever nation, or that you have more of a leadership position, that will look better. So if you're deciding between, I want to be active in 5 organizations, I don't have the time, so I'm doing the minimal thing, maybe you should reconsider and do 1 organization, but do a higher position. Because I think you can learn more, you challenge yourself more, and it might end up looking better on your resume. Because at the end of the day, your resume should be 1, maybe 2 pages tops. If you write all the things you've done, you're gonna easily come into more pages. So focus on the ones where you've had like a very clear and important role, I would say.
We're coming towards the end, and I would like to, I think this question, I'm very interested to know the answer, particularly. With all your experience with labor market and as your role with a labor market coordinator, what would you say is the most surprising thing that you learned?
The most surprising thing that I learned.
More unexpected.
Yeah, unexpected. I've learned many things that have been like, is it like this or is it like that? Something that I knew a little bit before, but I might not have known if I had not been active, was how different it is at our different faculties and the conditions that we have. So I have this network it's called a collegium, so labor market collegium, with the other student unions in Lund who work with labor market matters. And in this network, it's mainly been 2 other student unions with me. So shout out to the Natural Sciences Student Union and Leuve, their representative there, and the Humanities and Theology Student Union and Nora, their representative. And I've seen how we organize ourselves differently, and we have different challenges, and I've been a little surprised by the sometimes I felt the lack of interest from our faculty to continue working with career questions, or to have that as a part of their agenda, you could say. So that's been a little bit negative surprise. But on a more positive note, some students seem very interested in labor market and like networking, and I mean the ones that did attend the fair were happy. That's always nice to hear, like that all your hard work, everything you dedicate months and effort and energy to pays off. And this, I guess, for everything you do in life, every task you take on, the most surprising thing will always be it works out somehow. How does it work out? Well, we'll see, but it doesn't work out in the end.
Well, thank you so much for bringing your insights, and I really loved how positive and optimistic you are.
Thank you.
I think it can be, this process of entering the labor market can be so depressing and frustrating. It's nice to get that positive, optimistic perspective, and also realistic perspective. I would just ask if there's anything you think you want to add, or something you would like to promote, the union or some project that's happening. So
absolutely, there's so many things to promote. I can promote the student union. I'll focus on the labor market area, so sorry to my colleagues who don't work with that, or my co-workers. But in the student union, when we work with labor market matters, we do it in 3 different project groups. So the career fair SAMarbete has its own project group, only dedicated to the fair, and I'm soon going to release the Google form where students can sign up if they would like to take part in being active in that group. So follow us on social media and you'll get updates. And then we have 2 other groups. So one catered towards mainly international students. If you are an international student and are interested in the labor market area, please join that group if you want. It's called iProject. And then we also have a group called Career Contact Group, which works today mainly in Swedish to organize career-related events in both languages, actually, so both Swedish and English. And you can also visit the student union during our drop-in hours and speak to myself or one of my co-workers or the board members. We have drop-ins Tuesdays and Thursdays from 11 to 1. So we are there, and you can come in, get some free coffee and tea, and we have many exciting career events lined up. But I would say make sure to follow us on social media. Actually, the labor market area has its own social media, where we post like job opportunities that we get sent, or I get sent to me or find elsewhere. I post alumni portraits. I post information about the lectures and such. It's called SAMarbete Lund on Instagram and SAMarbete on Facebook. So you can follow us there and stay updated on everything the student union does.
Perfect. Thank you so much, and thank you to the listeners for tuning in to this episode, and I'll see you on the next one.
Thank you so much. Have a great day. Bye.
Thank you for tuning in. You can find FREJDA at frejda.org or at FREJDA.org on all social medias.